God had my attention. There were some gaps in my own spiritual formation that I realized that were almost killing me. You know when you think you hit rock bottom, but you're not? I found out that the bottom was a lot deeper than I imagined. I like to call it my second conversion. And I realized something, that emotional health and spiritual maturity are inseparable. That it's not possible to be spiritually mature while remaining emotionally immature.
Hey, this morning, as we talked a lot already about trials and people in it, man. This week I've talked to a lot of students and just heard prayer requests from people who have lots of things going on. And I don't know if you know this already, but you might be in a trial right now. You might be coming out of a trial or heading into one real soon. That's just the way of it. And years and years ago, when a student wanted to learn the way of martial art, they asked their sensei, maybe dad did martial art or something, they saw people doing this, they talked to this person, and then they went to the sensei or the guy, the master, and they said, hey, can I join this club? Can I join this martial art? And they would get one of these. You know what this is? Yeah, it's a white belt. Smart. You guys are smart people. It's a white belt. Anyway, so these kids would be given a white belt, and that would start, it was initiation, that would start their journey in martial art, right? And so as a kid began to practice with this thing, it started to get worn, they'd put it around to tie up their gi, and over time, this belt started to get worn. Maybe it started to turn a little bit yellowish from the action and the practice, and the yellow would turn to a little bit orange, and the orange would turn to green from grass stain and just wear and tear on this thing. It would start to turn a little bit purple-ish, and that purple would turn to brown as it got dirty. And just over time, man, if you worked on this belt, it would be worn out. And so you'd see a belt around a person, you can identify how much they took their art seriously, how long they'd been in it. Because when this thing turned black, you are a master. You know what you're doing. You have concept of the art, and you have some respect in the community. So what happened is I joined years ago, a friend of mine in New Jersey. I joined the club, and so I said, hey, I want to be part of it. And he said, well, you got to start with white belt. And I said, I have years of experience in wrestling and judo and stuff, so I should be grandfathered into a purple belt at least. No, you want to join, you start at the beginning. And you get the white belt. So this is one of the hardest things I had to do is put on, okay, I'll be a newbie. I think years ago, I tie that to my faith in Jesus. So, I grew up in church, and sometimes when you go to church, you kind of have a knowledge of God. What we like to do with God is we like to learn about Him. You study the Bible, you memorize verses, you become really smart about God. Imagine if someone researched you. They knew all about you. They knew where you lived. They knew all about your information, your family, and where you worked. They knew all about you, but they've never met you. They said, yeah, I know Matt Dawson, and I know this. Have you ever, really? It sounds, when did you meet him? I never met him. Yeah, I know all about him. I think there's a moment in time where God brings us to a relationship, where the knowledge of God seeps into our heart. And at some point in my life, I said yes to Jesus Christ. I put on Christ, and I took His white belt. And I said, I am a part of the journey. You are my sensei. You are my master and Lord, and I'm in. I've done that. I don't know where you are in your journey this morning. Maybe you came in here this morning. You took a wrong turn. You thought this was Tim Hortons. Wait, this isn't Tim Hortons. What's going on here? Someone bribed you to come. Someone forced you to come. You're held here against your will. I'm so sorry. Glad you're here. Maybe you have accepted Christ 20, 30 years ago. Maybe you haven't yet. What we want to talk about this morning is a journey. God is not interested in church, religious activities, a program. What He's interested in is you, to the core of you, your heartbeat. I put on Christ. I have His white belt, and I started that journey many years ago. Abraham put on that belt, that gi, and started that journey. I don't know when Abraham started that journey, back in the Old Testament, back in the day. Father Abraham, you know the song, right? Yeah, just don't sing it. It's really annoying when you do. The dance, it's really bad. Don't do it ever again. But Father Abraham, what I know about him, when I read Abraham in the Bible, I start to attach myself to him because he's a family guy. Father Abraham. There's a reason why God picked him to do what he did. He was a dad. He had passion for his family. And what happened when I think there's this initiation process, we see it in Genesis 12. I don't know when this happened, but at some point, Abraham said, I'm in. And when he got in, then God had to start teaching him about who God was. You have knowledge of me, Abraham, but let's go a bit deeper. And so he went through a yellow belt test, and here's the test. It's Genesis 12, 1 through 4, on the screen. It says this, the Lord said to Abraham, go from your country, your people, and your father's house to the land I will show you. Abraham, I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you. I will make your name great. I will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you. Whoever curses you, I will curse. And all the people on earth will be blessed through you. So Abraham went, as the Lord told him, brought his family with him. Yellow belt test. Years ago, growing up, I was growing up in the church. I did this, and I was a good Baptist kid. I did all the right things, kind of make God proud of me. And at certain points through my life, through sports and certain things, I went through dark valleys of tests and trials. And then I went to college, and I had my wrestling career, and I was going to serve God when I was done doing what I was going to do. And God laid me flat out in a hospital in Virginia and said, you're going to die right here. How's that for a test? I don't want you doing this. It's not helpful. So in that test, I began to learn who God was. He told me he was trustworthy, but I didn't really believe it. And so I went through a test and trial, and I began to realize that my God is trustworthy, which helped me obey him a little earlier. A few years later, I said yes, and I moved from my house in Newfane, New York, to Pennsylvania to be a youth pastor and left my family behind. Hardest thing I've had to do. Abraham started this journey. I don't know where you are in your journey. There's little tests, little valleys you go through. And here's the deal. When I go through these tests with my sensei and in life, you can have a choice. Let's say you're in martial art and the sensei says, hey, you're ready for this test. You're ready for the green belt. And you say, ain't no way. That last test was annoying. I almost didn't make it. I'm not going through another one. I'm going to stay right here with my nice, bright orange belt. And it looks pretty. I like it. I can identify with it, And so many people in church, they grow up and, whenever some things shine into your world, you back away. You run from that loving God because it hurts. It's painful. There's some pain in those tests. But here's what I know about God is what I know about most. When people put you into a test, they only give you that test because they know you can pass it. No sensei ever puts you in a belt test that they know you're going to fail. It's a secret. One of my jobs was to be the black belt tester. People would have to go through me to get their next belt. And my job was to help them process their information and go just a little bit above them. Make it stressful, make it hard. They might bleed a little bit, but never break their spirit. Encourage them. We're going to get them through because the sensei believes that they are worthy of this. They can do it. They may not believe in themselves yet, but at the end of the day, they will. God's job, his economy, is for us to know him. We can't know God better until we know ourselves fully. In Genesis 12:7, God told Abraham, he appeared to Abraham and said, to your offspring, I will give you this land. So he built an altar there. I'm going to do this, Abraham. Do you trust me? Do you trust me? Do you trust me? Yes, God, I trust you. That last test was hard, but I trust you. And then God, a few verses later, did something, another test came about, wasn't ready for. Now there was a famine in the land. And Abraham went down to Egypt to live there for a while. I don't know how long Abraham resisted. He wasn't supposed to leave the land. But at some point, Abraham said, I can't do this anymore. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. At some point, he could not handle the test that he was in, and he fled to Egypt. And he went down to Egypt. He lied. He got his wife, tried to keep her safe, but he lied, didn't trust God. He got in a mess with the Pharaoh. They kicked him out. He left Egypt with Hagar, an Egyptian handmaid for his wife. He came back to Canaan, and God met him there, going through tests. Do you trust me? I said I was going to give you the land. I said I'm going to make this your land. I'm going to give you a child. And then he promised him, I'm going to give you a child, and everything's going to come through that son. Another test. It took a long time So what did Abraham do? He grabbed the Egyptian handmaid. He took things into his own hands and had a child through her. And that son was called, his name was Ishmael, right? And if you know anything about Ishmael, when Isaac finally was born to Abraham, sibling rivalry between Ishmael and Isaac still happens today. They're still fighting over in Palestine. Sometimes we run from God through our guilt and shame and pain and whatever it is. We don't trust him. We try to do it on our own strength. And God forgives us. Yes, he does. All the time and always. But sometimes the sin, and the consequence of our sin kind of lingers along with us. Maybe through unconfessed sin, maybe anger, pain. A test comes, and last time it was a little hard. And instead of running to God, you run away. Because what I know about God is he'll shine in on your deep soul. He shines a spotlight into your soul. And you know yourself more. And one thing, we either can run closer to God or we run away from God. Abraham was given his son. And then we see in Genesis 22, the next test was coming. And here's the thing about tests. You know, if someone gives you a black belt, a brown belt test, they say, hey, here's your test going to be on April 24th. You better be ready for it. It's coming. So you have time to prepare and get ready for it. But guess what God does? He doesn't prepare you. He doesn't let you know when it is. You're prepared, and if he gives you a test, that means you can pass it. But you don't know when it's going to come. One day, Abraham's hanging out, playing Legos with his 15-year-old Isaac. You know, they're hanging out, playing whatever they play, chasing sheep, kicking them over, tip the sheep over, sheep tipping. And God met him and had to hang out. Hey, so you like Isaac? Yeah, you guys getting along? Yeah, he's great. So much. I love Isaac. It's so good. Thanks, God, so much. Hey, it's awesome. Hey, I got a test for you. Do you trust me? Do you trust me, Abraham? Yeah, I trust you, God. You're so awesome. Do you trust me? Yeah, okay. I want you to take Isaac. I want you to take him to Mount Moriah. And I want you to sacrifice him to me. Now, I don't know how that conversation went with his wife. But Abraham had a conflict of interest. The brown belt test had begun. He'd gone through the test. See, a lot of the tests are easier. The yellow belt test, basic knowledge of God. You know, the orange belt, you have to have a little bit more of the test, but you have the next level test. The green belt, you have a review of the orange and the yellow, but the process through, God has a process to bring us up to maturity. But then there comes a time where God tests the thing that you most struggle with. And what I know about Abraham from the Bible, what he loved the most was his family. And God went there. Not to hurt him, not to mock him, but do you trust me, Abraham? Do you trust me with your job? Do you trust me with your future? Do you trust me with your marriage? Do you trust me with your kids? Do you trust me? Or is this just church we're playing? God took Isaac and they went for a walk. And Isaac's had a really good question. Hey, Dad, I see the sticks in the fire. Where's the sacrifice? God will provide a lamb. Okay. They got to the base of the mountain, and Abraham told the people right there, hey, we are going to go up. We're going to worship God, and we will come back down. I don't know what Abraham was thinking in Hebrews chapter 11. We get a little glimpse of his mind. In Hebrews 11, it says that Abraham thought that maybe I'm going to sacrifice my son, but God's going to give him back. He's going to raise him back from the dead. Now, has that ever happened in his life? I don't know. That's crazy. Hey, maybe I'll kill him and he'll raise him back. I don't know what's going to happen. He told me this is the son. Why would he want me to kill him? Why would he want this back? It doesn't make any sense. So they walked up the mountain. Isaac's 15 years old. Abraham's over 100. I don't know how this went down. Abraham's thinking by the time they get to the top of the mountain, Isaac's like, so where is the offering? And I don't know how he was feeling. He was probably trembling, crying. And he said, Isaac, I know this sounds strange, but do you trust me? Yeah. You're the sacrifice. Now, if I was Isaac, good luck, old man. See you at the bottom of the hill. I don't know how that relationship was. I don't know how that conversation went. I don't know if he bound him and lifted him up, but he had to get up on that altar. I don't know if Isaac climbed up on his own, but he was bound and he laid down. Isaac gave up his life. He was as good as dead. And when Abraham took that knife in his hand, he wasn't playing around. This isn't a game. God knows your heart. He lifted up that knife, and with tears running down his face, his son was as good as dead. And he passed that test because God came in and said, no, I don't want you to. Thank you so much, Abraham, for trusting me. You know you can trust me. You know you can do the next thing. You know you got this because I got you. And the more he trusted God, it was easier to obey him. When it's easier to obey him, you know he loves you. When you know he loves you, you know you can trust him. And if you know you can trust him, you know you can obey him. And that process just starts to grow. Hebrews 4 is how this works. Let me read these verses to you. Hebrews 4, 12 and 13. If you really want to know God, this is how it works. And this is that make or break it moment for us in the church and for us in the world. For the word of God is living and active, sharper than any double-edged sword. It penetrates even to the dividing of the soul and spirit, joints and marrow. It judges the thoughts and attitudes of your heart. Nothing in all of creation is hidden from God's sight. Everything is uncovered and laid bare before the eyes of him who must give an account. Here's the image. You have a knife trapped around your neck. The point is in your chin. You're looking God right in the eyes. You are bare naked. And your chest is exposed, ripped open to your soul. He knows you. We think we can play games at church and kind of come. Oftentimes, the church is the worst place to grow as a Christian. Because we come and we're all dressed up. Hey, how are you? Great, how are you? Awesome, woohoo! Go Bills, yay! And then we play and we have fun, church, yeah, la 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 la. Then we go home, back in the car. What? And we're crazy back. We're back to crazy. We're back to guilt, shame, and fear. Back to control. And God will put you in a situation where you can't run. And what he wants us to know from Hebrews chapter 4, he wants you to know, he wants me to know, Matt, I know you. I know you better than you know yourself. I know your fears. I know your bad motivation. I know what you did last week. I know what you're going to do next week. And I love you anyway. Do you understand that? I died for those sins. Not so you can run and play, but so we can be in a relationship. Not for a week, but grow in that relationship. And that's when the black belt comes in. Next level of knowing God. Revelation 3:20 says this, I stand at the door and I knock. And if anyone hears my voice and opens that door, I will come in and eat with that person and they with me. It's a relationship. Some of us, we've said, yeah, I accepted Jesus Christ years ago. I keep him in the kitchen. Safe there. Hey, I can come to the living room sometimes. He's not going to go to work, though, or school. He can't go to school because, school is where I hang out. That's where people know. That's a different. I have school. I have work. I have the basement. I have the man cave. I got the marriage. But Jesus, I'll keep him at church. It's kind of like Riley, my cat. Riley, my cat. Years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, this little kitten was meowing outside our door. For 2 or 3 days, 3 or 4, I let it meow there for 2 or 3 days. I would hope it either die or go away. The thing just kept meowing. Didn't get the hint. So I went outside and I chased around the house a few times. I got it, brought it in the house. Gave it a name. And, little kitten, oh, meow, meow. And we loved it. And the kid's like, oh, kitten, I love this cat. And we gave it a name and we kept it. I saved its life. 4 years later. Cat's not with us in New York, and what the cat likes to do is it likes to sleep under my bed, which is awesome. So I come home, and it doesn't like me at all. I've done nothing to harm it but save its life. And it sleeps under my bed, so I come in my house, going to change a little bit, and if I get too close to where it's at, it goes, hey! It's like a rattlesnake's going to bite my toes off. It knows where I'm at. I'll go in the living room, and I'll go to pet him. You got to sniff the fingers, going in for the pet. Okay! So annoying. Loves the kids. That's really cool. But here's the deal. All of a sudden, the cat will come to me and so, meow, meow, and I'll go to pet it, and it goes like this. And it's leading me to its bowl of food. So here's the deal. When I get to the bowl of food, I can lean down and put food in the bowl, and then I pet the cat because it wants to be pet while it eats. That's mandatory. And it'll keep meowing until I do so. So I'll come in and I'm petting hard. I'm like a full-on down the back, ears, and the butt's going up. He's like, purring and having a great, like 5 minutes of petting. He's having a great time. And then I'll get up and I'll go back and make my sandwich, and the cat will come over here. She's done. She gets on a chair, and I'll go back in for a pet. That's not right. And I think God gave me that cat to help remind me, Matt, this is how you treat me sometimes. See, you want me to feed you and pet you. You want me to help you in times of need. But when those times are over, you kind of push me away. You don't need me anymore. You kind of keep me, hey, I'll visit you back at church next Sunday. Gotcha. And I'm reminded of this revelation. I stand at the door and I knock. I want to have fellowship with you. And sometimes we think God doesn't want us to have fellowship, and that's where 2 Corinthians 10:5 comes in. We need to demolish all arguments and every pretense that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. What's the knowledge of God? He loves us. God is love. That's all he is. He knows all about us. There's nothing hidden from his sight. So we take captive every thought and make it obedient to Christ. Who wrote this? Paul. Where? In prison. Bound. You bind up those thoughts with handcuffs. You tie them up. You don't let them in the garden of your mind. You don't download the virus unless God gets the approval of those thoughts. So here's what we want to do this morning. A couple challenges. We want to stop. Stop. Stop running. Stop hiding. Stop looking down away from God. Look him in the eyes. People say, do you apologize for your sin? I don't need to apologize for my sin to be forgiven of my sin. Hear this clearly. I don't need to apologize to Jesus to have forgiveness of my sin. My sin is already forgiven. I apologize to God so that I can have a relationship with him restored. My sin has been forgiven, past, present, and future. It's all forgiven at the cross. But what happens is we live in this perpetual looking down. I feel embarrassed, or I just run out and start judging you then and comparing my sin to your sin and living, hey, I'm not as bad as they are. And I'll start getting all, guilt and shame. And that makes me a terrible person, ornery, cranky person. And what God wants to help me realize is, man, I know you. Stop looking away from me. Look me in the eyes. Let's have relationship. That's what every parent wants from their kids, don't they? Relationship. What stops that relationship? Sin. Walking away. That's not what God desires. So let's stop. Let's start living in relationship with him. Start understanding who he is. Now, this is really, these verses are awesome. Hebrews 4:14-16. After we get the whole image of us being bare naked before God and our eyes looking at him, I know everything about you. Therefore, because I know you. Therefore, since we have a great high priest who has ascended to heaven, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold firmly to the faith we profess. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to empathize with our weakness, but we have who has been tempted in every way just as we are, yet without sin. He knows what we live with. He was here. He knows this world. He's not blind to it. He knows what you're going through. He is your teacher. He is your God. And because he knows you, he knows your trials, he knows your mistakes, he knows your faults, he knows your motivations. And because he loves you anyway, let us then approach God's throne of grace with confidence so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. We got to stop hiding from a God who loves us, who knows us, and start running to the throne of grace with confidence to a God who loves us uncontrollably, unconditionally, who died in our place so that we don't have to. This is one of my favorite belts that I have. Helps me remember I want to live a black belt mentality. I want to have a black belt faith. I trust God hard, does the hard things. But I want to have a white belt spirit. Never forgetting where I came from. Never forgetting what I've learned. We don't want to be proud, arrogant people who know all about things. There are people around us that are getting hurt and crushed. We need to step in and be Jesus to them. We need to be Jesus at our workplaces, be Jesus at our schools. Jesus did not consider equality with God something to be grasped, but took on the role of a servant and was butchered on a cross for our behalf. He did hard things, and so should we. The communion, from my perspective, is a time where Jesus gathered his guys and he just asked them a question: are you in? I consider it like a renewing of my vows, a monthly renewing of my vows. It's hard to renew my vows with Amy if I'm thinking of Sally. I'm thinking about something else. Yeah, oh yeah, God. Yeah, I'm a Christian. That's right. I have my belts. And God's like, yeah, me. Remember? This is a great time to remember that Jesus Christ, remember we left Abraham on a mountain, Mount Moriah. And God said, I don't want Isaac as a sacrifice on Mount Moriah. Many years later, on that same mountain, God built himself a city called Jerusalem. And he sent Jesus Christ on that same mountain to be a sacrifice on our behalf. He died so we don't have to. Jesus loves you so much, he died so you don't have to. He shed his blood on your behalf. And if you're here this morning and you're not a believer in Jesus Christ, you never put your faith in Jesus, you don't have the gi on, you don't have the white belt, you have church attendance, but you've never stepped in for the first time to accept Jesus Christ into your life. This is that time in your life to take that cup and say, yes, Jesus, I know your body was broken for me and I want in. I want forgiveness of my sin. I want the gi, I want the white belt. I want what you have to give me. I want my sins covered. This is the time. Maybe it's the first time in your life, but you take this elements as a sign of salvation for you. This is your come to Jesus moment. Or maybe you've been in church a long time, and this is a renewing of your vows. God, it's been a tough month. It's been a tough year. But you know me completely, and you love me anyway, so I'm in. I'm renewing my vows to you this morning. Thank you for your body broken on my behalf. Thank you that your blood was shed in my place. I'm in. So, or you maybe can't this morning. Just set these aside if that's not you. And it's okay. God knows where we're at. Again, we're naked before him. He knows your motivations. Put it aside. Where are you at this morning? If you want to renew your vows or you accept Christ for the first time, then take the bread. Offered to you on your behalf, Christ's body broken. And let's take the body together. And he took the cup and he looked into their eyes. And he said, guys, I know you. And I love you anyway. And I'm about to do something that's going to blow your mind. I'm going to shed my blood on your behalf to pay for your sin and a ransom. If you want that for the first time, receive it. If you want that for the 100th time, receive it as renewing your vows to live out that faith, your black belt mentality in this world who desperately needs to see it lived out. People around you are living in a mess. Maybe they're in a test right now. We can come alongside them and offer a hug, offer Jesus hands and feet to them. So let's take this juice as a reminder of his love for us. Let's take it.